So for those of our listeners who might have heard the acronym FIRE, but might not be familiar with it, what is the FIRE sector today, and how explicitly do you liken it to a parasite?
Well, the fire sector is finance, insurance, and real estate. When I went to school to get my PhD in the 1960s, the textbooks all had happy pictures of banks lending money to a factory, and the factory would be employing workers carrying their lunch boxes, to work, and then the workers would borrow from spend money and buy a house, and it was all part of a circular flow. But that's not what banks lend money for. Banks don't never made loans for factories or new means of productions. Banks make loans against collateral. They'll make a loan to you to buy a house, but they have the house as the collateral. They'll make loans for a company to buy an existing industrial corporation, but they won't make loans for an industrial corporation to build up its business and to expand its business. That's usually done by the stock market or initial public offerings, but mostly by retained earnings. Corporations self-finance themselves, just like movie makers. A lot of movie makers begin by borrowing against their house that their family had left them to get the money to make a movie and end up having a movie to show the producers to try to get going. So it turns out that 80% of bank loans are collateralized by real estate. The biggest market all the way from the third millennium BC has been loans against real estate, against land. And today, that means that the banking interest, the finance, insurance, and real estate sector, banking and real estate are into symbiosis, as is the insurance companies that insure the house. A bank will not give you a mortgage unless you buy insurance for it, usually from a friend of the bank. So they're all part of a financial layer. And this bank lending does not increase income except their own income. It doesn't increase production because it's making loans almost, and all the mortgages are against properties that already exist, against houses that exist, or office buildings that exist, or corporations that exist, and they'll make loans for you to come in and break up and destroy a corporation. You'll make loans to a private capital company to borrow money to buy Sears Roebuck and drive it bankrupt. You lend the money to buy Toys R Us and drive it bankrupt, but not to increase the business, just to smash it, carve it up, fire the labor, and then or buy a company and then fire the labor and move it offshore and use Chinese or Asian labor instead. So the banking sector is basically parasitic in the sense that it doesn't generate its own income. What a bank lending does is it goes up and up and up, is increase the price that it costs to buy a house. Banks continually to lend more and more money against houses. I won't go into that. But the result is that somehow they've, instead of saying, well, what banks do is increase the amount of debt that you have to take on to buy a house of your own to live in, to increase the amount of debt that a corporation has to take on, just so it'll have debt, so no corporate raider will want to borrow money to take us over because the company has already taken a poison pill of running into debt to buy a competitor or some other use, just to pay out as dividends to management, just to protect itself. So what you've done is a whole change in how people perceive reality. Economists are taught not to understand how reality works. They're taught science fiction. They rightly should be a literature department in the humanities section for science fiction because they talk about a parallel universe. So that's when I came upon the metaphor of parasitism. People think of parasitism as doing what certainly banks do. They siphon money out of your income, you have to pay in America and Europe more and more of your wage income as interest to the banks. And corporations have to spend more and more of their income on debt service. The government today has to spend more and more of its income on the interest payment to bondholders of its public debt. How do you get people not to think of this? Why is it that people think the banks are our friend? They are what enables us to buy a house, even though it enables them to buy a house that requires the whole population to end up paying more and more of their income for housing, no longer just 25% of their income, as was the norm for bank loans when I was working on Wall Street in the 1960s. But now the average American has to pay 42% of their income, all government guaranteed, on in order for their housing. So they've more than doubled, just about doubled, the amount that many families have to pay for their housing, and that's parasitism. And what I realized, the parasitism is not only taking more money, it's taking over the brain so that people think that the financial sector is actually helping them and actually contributing to national income and gross domestic product. You had a few years ago the head of Goldman Sachs come out and saying, Goldman Sachs's partners are the most productive workers in the United States. Look at how much money they get paid as their bonuses. All of their bonuses are counted as GDP. All of the interest that people pay, interest is a cost of doing business, as if all of this helps business. That's added to GDP. If wage earners fall behind in their credit cards debt, and the credit card interest says, oh, now you have to pay a penalty rate, we're raising it from 19% to 30%, that all that added percentage is counted as providing a financial service, and it's counted as GDP. So the financial sector has taken over the very concept of what economic growth is, the very concept of GDP and national income, to make it think that, yes, the bankers and Goldman Sachs, the financial sector, the corporate raiders, Blackstone and BlackRock, they're all adding to our prosperity. Well, the result is you have right-wing critics like Krugman saying in his editorials in the New York Times, how can the American public be so stupid? They don't realize how wonderfully we're doing. Look at how the rich people are buying better yachts than ever. They're getting bigger and bigger houses. They're getting wealthier and wealthier. Why is it that voters don't think that they're doing better under Biden and the Democrats? Well, what Krugman has is the precondition for being taken seriously. The Nobel Prize for libertarian, for neoclassical economics. The condition of being an economic guru is not understanding how the economy works. If you understand how the economy works, largely financially, and how economic planning is centralized in the financial sector, that disqualifies you. You're called overqualified or overeducated. That's not economics. That's we call that an externality. Well, debt is an externality. Global warming is an externality. Crime and homelessness is an externality. Everything that's a problem is called external to what economics is all about, which is how you can get richer by borrowing from the bank and going further into debt, and the creditor will help you. Well, this is science fiction, and the parasite has taken over the brain in the sense that they've taken over the financing and endowing of business schools, of colleges, to make sure that the economics professors that are appointed teach this mythology of how the economy really works on barter. You don't really have to look at debt because we owe it to ourselves. Well, when we owe it to ourselves, that means the 99% owe it to ourselves, the 1%. It's all reading 1984 will give you a help in understanding what Orwell meant with double speak and double think. and all that. That is basically how economic graduates end up being miseducated, and they're hired really as public relations representatives for the financial and banking sector.